Georgy Konstantinovich Zhukov was born on December 1, 1896, in a small village outside Moscow, into a poor family. Like so many children of peasants, Zhukov's early life was one of hardship. He worked as an apprentice to a furrier in Moscow, but life was about to change drastically. In 1915, during the First World War, he was drafted into the Imperial Russian Army. There, he distinguished himself through discipline and valor, earning his first medals and his first taste of leadership. It was in the trenches of the First World War, and later the Russian Civil War, that Zhukov began to hone the skills that would make him one of the 20th century's greatest military strategists. By the time the Bolsheviks took power, Zhukov's loyalties had shifted. He joined the Red Army, climbing the ranks and developing his reputation as a bold, decisive leader. As the Soviet Union underwent rapid military expansion, Zhukov advanced through the ranks, becoming known for his toughness and strategic insight. By 1939, he was sent to Mongolia to confront the Japanese army on the Soviet border. At the Battle of Kholkhin Gol, he delivered a crushing blow to Japan, using innovative tactics that would become his trademark. On June 22, 1941, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, a brutal assault on the Soviet Union. The Nazi blitzkrieg swept through Soviet defenses, and by October, the Germans were advancing on Moscow. Stalin knew the city was on the brink of falling, and he turned to Zhukov. With no room for error, Zhukov was tasked with defending the Soviet capital. But Moscow was only the beginning. In 1942, Zhukov was tasked with relieving the siege of Leningrad, which had been under German blockade for nearly a year. Despite limited resources, he managed to break through enough to bring vital supplies into the city, sustaining it through the darkest days of the war. Then came the decisive Battle of Stalingrad. As the German Sixth Army pushed into the city, Stalin once again looked to Zhukov. This time, Zhukov planned a counteroffensive that would encircle the German forces in a deadly trap. Operation Uranus, as it was called, was a masterstroke. By early 1943, the German Sixth Army was defeated. Stalingrad marked the turning point of World War II on the Eastern Front, and Zhukov was hailed as the architect of victory. In July 1943, the Nazis launched another major offensive at Kursk, hoping to reclaim momentum. Zhukov anticipated their moves and fortified the area, creating a death trap for the German forces. The Battle of Kursk became the largest tank battle in history and ended with another Soviet victory. For Zhukov, it was more than a battle, it was proof that the Red Army had the strength to drive the Nazis back. After Kursk, Zhukov's path led west, pushing the Germans back toward their own borders. His leadership was essential in liberating Soviet territory and eventually driving into Eastern Europe. His goal was clear: Berlin. In April 1945, the Red Army stood at the gates of Berlin. For Zhukov, the assault on the German capital was the culmination of years of brutal warfare and unthinkable losses. As commander of the First Belarusian Front, Zhukov led the charge, coordinating a relentless attack that would end Hitler's Third Reich. On May 2nd, Berlin fell, signaling the end of Nazi Germany. The victory came at a tremendous cost, with millions of Soviet lives lost. But to Zhukov, it was more than a military conquest, it was retribution for the suffering inflicted on his people. After Stalin's death, Zhukov was briefly restored to prominence. In 1955, he was appointed Minister of Defense, but his tenure was short-lived. The new leadership saw him as too independent, and by 1957, he was forced into retirement. In his later years, Zhukov lived a quiet life, writing his memoirs and reflecting on the war that had defined him. He was one of the most decorated soldiers in Soviet history, yet his relationship with his country's leaders remained fraught with tension. For the people of the Soviet Union, he was a hero, a man who had faced insurmountable odds and helped deliver victory.